take a look at a couple typographic systems from other designers to get an idea of how they crafted theirs. So this one's a really complicated one, and it's why developing typographic systems is important. So they have this almost spherical presentation of their different typography. And there's a way that a structure or a system that they came up with to help them determine the spacing and how to present it in this circular fashion. So if we go down here, you can see how they set up the system and how they have all these different circles and different heights between how they were able to put the logo system. So you could see how they have examples too. They were able to kind of work through this and determine how their system plays out on real items. So once they set up a system, they're able to adapt that to a wide array of different items. And you could see the overlapping circles so they know how to present the system. This is another great system that was put together. So you notice with this particular brand, they have a headline. It's all caps. They have determined the spacing between each line, the spacing between each character. They've determined whether any kind of typography overlaps photography. They also have a subheading. So we have a main heading and we have a subheading down here. And you can see how this translates onto digital and mobile applications as well, and also having some different contrast with using color. And here's another example of how they extended that typography into different sizes. And they have this wonderful, beautiful serif typeface. But the problem with serif typefaces is when you have these small details like menu options, you're going to need to have another font pairing that's a serif or a sans serif typeface that's going to be more easy to read. And so further down in the system, you'll be able to see what they did. They're even doing different spacing using pixels for their website. They're determining a system of what's the spacing between elements and kind of setting up a grid system for their typography. So here's the serif typeface they used. It was silk serif. You can see how they show each character and each letter. Remember how just a few minutes ago we saw the differences between different typefaces and each character. So they kind of are doing a little bit of a study with that by doing all caps. And notice how they don't show any lowercase because they're not doing lowercase. They decided to not do lowercase in their heading, so they're establishing that rule. And once again, they have a font pairing. So they paired this wonderful detailed heading with a more practical sans serif called Gotham. So now they'll be able to have a nice readable paragraph copy, and you can see how that looks right here. It's a lot more clean, and they can use this for their big headlines, and they can use Gotham for your kind of bigger blocks of smaller information and smaller paragraphs. So you can see great examples of this in this presentation. So we have a headline, which is kind of your largest typeface. You have a next step down, a smaller heading, and then you have kind of your body copy, and you have small print. So this is kind of showing type hierarchy in action. It's giving an example of how to use the type system, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and go through this process of creating a system, and then we're going to create a menu, because sometimes we don't know what size to make all this until we have a real project to show it off on. So we're going to create the very basics of our menu for Sushi Club and be able to develop our typography system at the same time. So let's get started. So I did a little bit of my homework, and I have Montserrat. We already have that as our logo. That is our main logo typeface. And it had so many wonderful weight options. If you look at all these different wonderful weight options, we have so many weight options, we may not need to pair it with a second font. But that could be different with yours. You could have a very decorative main typeface, and you're going to need that very basic sans serif typeface like the last example to have for readable copy, readable text. In this case, I think we can get away with using one typeface, but we're going to need to use different weights. So there's no way we're going to use all of these. So our typography system is going to tell people these are the selected weights that are approved to use for the brand. We're only going to use black. We're only going to use regular. We're only going to use light, for example. So what I like to do is create a block of copy that has a main big headline, your biggest headline, then a subheader below it, which is going to be probably half the size, and perhaps even another heading that's going to be half of that size, and then a block of copy that's several sentences long, and sometimes you can make it even longer than this example, and of course some small print right here. So this is going to be the very basics of setting up our typography system. So we have, I'm labeling it. This is an extra bold. That's the boldest. I think black is the boldest, but extra bold was what was determined to be a right thickness for the headline. And it steps down from there. We have a Montserrat medium for the subheading, and then a regular for the body copy, which is very normal, very standard, and an italic for anything that's small copy. And so notice what I did. I typed out each letter. So all I did was I typed in A, put a couple spaces, typed in B, typed in C, just so I can study each character and see how the numbers look, how all the different characters look. And so that's why it can take a lot of time to pick the right typeface, because you may go in here and go, I don't really like how the numbers look. I don't really like how the Q looks here. You're going to find something you don't like about each typeface, but you're going to find what you think is the best match. Same thing for medium. Same thing for all the different weights that we decided were going to be the ones that we were going to use.